Before we get started though, FiFine were kind enough to send me out this microphone so I could test it out and see what I thought of it, but they haven't asked me to make a review or paid me to do any of this stuff, so all my opinions are going to be my own. Anyway, as we all know, when it comes to like content creation and live streaming, one of the most important things is audio, because that's way more important than your visuals, because if you have kind of subpar visuals but still have good audio, people will happily hang out and listen to what you have to say for hours. I get a lot of questions, especially on my like TikTok or even on this YouTube channel, about people asking me what microphone they should buy to get started, or what's the best microphone for this platform. And a lot of people will know of the big names. They will often go for like a microphone like this one, which is the Shure SM7B, which is definitely a good microphone, but to use an SM7B, you're going to need an SM7B, potentially a cloud lifter, and then an interface to actually attach it to. And all of that added together, it's probably coming close to like 600, 700, maybe even like 800 pounds plus or so, which is going to be a lot of money for people just starting out. A lot of people who come to me normally have like 100, 150 pound kind of budget and just want something that's kind of plug and play and will get them started when they first start creating. And that's where a microphone like this FiFine comes in, because it costs less than 100 pounds. It's around 90 or so in the UK, and in the US it's actually even cheaper. It's more like $75, $80 or so, which is honestly a bargain to get you started for like good audio. It's just plug in and play. You've got a USB-C straight into your PC, so you can just plug it in and go. And also it actually has an XLR connector as well, which means that you can start with the USB-C option, but in the future you can upgrade to XLR and have an interface, or even a Go XLR, and control all of your audio through that XLR connector instead. But saying that, as you can hear right now, I've got kind of a compressor, I've got EQ, I've got effects on this microphone making it sound like it does. So I'm going to take all these off so you can hear what the microphone sounds like straight out of the box. So I've removed all the effects now, and this is kind of what you're going to get if you just buy this microphone with nothing else. Plug it into your PC and start talking. I've even changed from XLR to the USB-C connection, so that's exactly what you're hearing right now. And honestly, for a microphone that costs like $80 or so, £80, whatever, round about there, I actually think it sounds pretty good straight out of the box. Speaking of the box, these are the things you get when you first buy the microphone. You get the microphone itself, which obviously has like an inbuilt shock mount and foam windscreen. You get a decent length USB-C cable. I think it's like 2.5 meters or like 8 feet. And also you get an adapter which can go from 5/8 to 3/8 inch for attaching microphones to boom poles and stands and stuff. One thing I will say though is this microphone is kind of quiet when using it via USB. So right now you can hear me, but I've boosted this in post, because if I don't, this is what it sounds like. Even though the dial is kind of full on the back, it's a bit quiet, it's not the loudest, so you have to actually boost that up in post, and doing so increases a lot of your background noise as well as the noise floor, so you kind of get that hissy, gainy kind of sound, which doesn't always sound good. But when you do eventually switch over to an XLR setup, you're going to get a much cleaner sound, because you're going to be using the preamps built into your interface instead, which are obviously going to be better, higher powered than the ones built into the USB one here. And as you can hear, it's going to be less noisy, less hissy, and just generally sound better overall. Obviously, this microphone is designed for both USB and XLR use, but the XLR is going to be much better. So if you can afford to, even if it's like a $30 to $50 kind of interface, like the Behringer ones that are really cheap or something like that, try and get one of those instead, just because the sound quality from the XLR output is going to sound much more professional and cleaner than the USB one. However, if you're just recording audio and stuff, most of the time you can either remove that noise quite easily using software, or if you're playing games or doing stuff on stream or whatever, it's probably going to be hidden behind all of that stuff anyway. So it's not a huge issue for the price of this type of microphone, but I just thought I'd let you know that it isn't the cleanest preamps built into this for USB-C. Speaking of USB-C though, this microphone has a mute button on the side of it. I don't know if you can see it, but it's this little green button here, which obviously goes red when you mute it. Super useful when you're connected in USB-C mode. However, it doesn't work in XLR, but it's useful for obviously avoiding any unwanted sound, or if you want to cough or sneeze, or just mute your microphone for any reason. And seeing as though this microphone is a USB-C microphone, that means that I can take that USB-C cable and plug it. Nope, that didn't quite work out for me. I tried it a few different ways and I just couldn't get it to work. And I don't know if it's something that I'm doing wrong or if my phone's too old to make this work, but I could not get the USB-C out of this microphone to go into my phone. Even though the light like lit up and stuff when I plugged it in, the audio wouldn't go into my phone no matter what app I used. I tried using the Inbuilt camera app, I tried using TikTok, I even tried just using the voice recording like app. Couldn't get it to work, so I don't know if it's a me thing or technology thing, but sorry, I thought it would work. Obviously, the K688 is a dynamic microphone, and the way that it's styled and looked means that it's going to be compared a lot to this microphone, which is the Shure SM7B. So I figured a good little test on this video, at least, would be to compare the sound quality between these two microphones, even though they do cost like £300 difference between the two. I wish it need not have happened in my time, said Frodo. So do I, said Gandalf, and so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. I wish it need not have happened in my time, said Frodo. So do I, said Gandalf, and so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given us. Obviously, when you compare the two microphones side by side like that, the Shure is miles better. You can hear that it's way more clear, there's more bass in it, also it's less muddy compared to the FiFine, but both these microphones obviously had no effects, no filters on them. So basically, if you take these microphones and then add in EQ and compression and like limiters and stuff like that, and then upload them to Twitch or YouTube or whatever platform you're uploading them to, you probably won't actually be able to hear that much of a difference. Well, you probably will, but your audience might not be able to hear a difference, or at least not a £300 difference between the two microphones. However, when it comes to using a cheap microphone like the FiFine, obviously the audio is going to be worse, but there's going to be other issues as well. So something like the Shure SM7B, literally built like a tank. I could hit someone with this and knock them out and the microphone would still work perfectly fine. However, the FiFine, a little bit cheaper. It still works fine. It's still aluminium and stuff, but it just doesn't feel as expensive as a microphone like this. Not to mention this pop filter thing going on. You've probably heard throughout this entire video, but this microphone kind of struggles with plosives and also sibilant sounds. So like S's and P's and B's and stuff, you'll hear kind of way too much from this microphone. And that's because of, well, two things really. This pop filter windshield type thing, not the best. It's okay, it looks good, and obviously it's based on the SM7B design, but the difference in quality between these two things, night and day. This one is basically just like a sponge. It's very soft and thin and doesn't really stop any P sounds very well, as you can kind of hear. P, B, not great. But also the way that the capsule is designed kind of lends itself to struggling with that type of stuff more. So if I kind of take this off here without deafening you, you can kind of see that this is the capsule, and then it kind of is right at the top here. So microphone, and then the capsule ends here. So when you speak into it, PB, that you kind of expel from saying those letters and words and stuff is hitting the actual capsule straight on. Whereas on the SM7B, this is obviously where you're talking into, but the capsule of an SM7B is way down here. So you've got all this gap between your breath and the capsule, and not to mention you've got like the actual thing on top, which is going to stop that even more. So even though they're built very differently, this microphone kind of struggles with those types of sounds. However, I would suggest, if you do get this microphone, try replacing this, because as you can see, pizza, beer, babe, pepperoni, party. It doesn't sound great, but if I take this one off and replace it with like another one which is designed for like the SM7B instead, pizza, beer, party, pepperoni, probably sounds a lot clearer, and you're not getting that ridiculous like plosive sound as much as you were before. Another issue I kind of find with this microphone as well is the handling noise, which you probably also heard throughout this video, because, well, I talk with my hands a lot, and obviously if you're streaming with this, you're going to be moving around and playing games and doing that type of stuff as well. But every time you knock this microphone, you're going to hear a lot of noise and things happening, whereas with the SM7B, it handles that also a little bit better, so it just sounds a little bit less irritating overall. Speaking of irritating sounds and stuff, I wanted to demonstrate the background rejection as well as the off-axis rejection of this microphone. So starting with the background rejection, if I start like typing and stuff, this is kind of what it would sound like if you were streaming or playing a game or using a keyboard or something in the background while talking into a microphone at the same time. And is it a little bit annoying? Maybe. Is it the worst thing I've ever heard in the world? No, but it could be better, but it's not the worst. And off-axis rejection is obviously how well it picks up your voice when you're not straight in front of it. So when you are in front of it like this, speaking into the camera or like into the microphone straight on, that's going to be fine. But if you move around to the side a bit, it might not pick you up quite as clear as it once did. But, you know, this is a dynamic microphone, so it is kind of to be expected that it isn't going to pick up your voice perfectly unless you're in front of it. Overall, though, this microphone is actually pretty great option, especially for the price of it, because there's not really many good USB/XLR microphones for under $100 or £100 or so. And even though I've complained about one or two little things, none of them are really a deal breaker, especially in this price. Because if I was paying £300-400 like I did for the Shure SM7B and it had those issues, I would not purchase it. But for something that I'm paying like £80 for, it's to be expected that there are going to be one or two little like caveats or things that are going to cause a little annoyances. But you can't really be too picky if you're buying something that's this cheap. And as I've demonstrated already in this video, if you add in some filters and like effects and stuff, you can make this microphone sound a lot more expensive than it actually is. Surprisingly, I used this microphone for like a month or so on my TikTok and not a single person complained about the audio quality. It basically looks the same as my SM7B, so it was like hiding in plain sight a lot of the time, and no one really complained about it because they were just like, oh, it sounds good, I'm happy listening to this content. And obviously your audience too, if you bought this microphone, isn't going to be like, this sounds terrible. So if you are just a beginner creator or just starting out, this wouldn't be a bad choice for your first microphone. Hopefully this demo and review was useful for you though, because I know how daunting it can be when you're first getting into content creation and buying all the equipment that you need to start doing this stuff, because there's so many options out there and everything has its pros and cons. But as I said earlier on, for the price of it, this microphone is really good. If you do have any additional questions or queries about this microphone though, feel free to drop a comment down below and I will reply with an answer as quick as I can. In the meantime though, don't forget to give this video a like if you found it useful, and also I've got some more videos about content creation and live streaming tips and stuff which you can check out here, and I will see you all in the next one.